Ladies and gentlemen and coaches out there, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Rising Coaches podcast with us today. Alan Major and Doug Caputo, as always, the voices you've been hearing for long enough. But as we always say, right, there's a main reason you clicked on and listened to this episode, and that reason is for the assistant coach that we have sitting here today, women's assistant coach and recruiting coordinator, St. Joseph's University, Coach Ashley Prim. Coach Prim, welcome to the podcast. What's going on?
Oh, nothing. Thank you, both Doug and Alan, for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. Yes. Shout out to Patty Medina as well. Our
that's my girl.
Unofficial podcast agent for us as well. She's been making it happen. So no, thank you, Ashley. This will be fun. We're happy to have you.
So with you, first off, you've had a stellar playing career. And I always tell everybody, like, if we're going to sit here and talk about something, I'm not going to let you do the bragging, because a lot of times people and coaches want to be humble, right? So we'll do the bragging for you. But you have had a stellar playing career, A10 6th player of the year, 7th most all-time in scoring history. But one thing that I want to bring you back to ultimately is, and please tell me if I'm pronouncing it, but it's Colby Cathedral High School, correct?
Yes.
Back to high school, right? Bring you back to the roots. Going into from there to now St. Joe's. Of course, you had a playing career. You go from Colby to St. Joe's and continue your playing career. So it's ultimately full circle for you to be back and coaching where you were, but we'll get into that. One thing that we like to touch on is just going throughout the recruiting process from a senior to going into freshman year of high school, or excuse me, senior year of high school, freshman year of college, right? And of course, the landscape is completely different now. So obviously there's different tendencies and different means and ways of recruiting. But was there anything that St. Joseph's staff did to help really win you over to St. Joe's, and kind of what were some of those things?
I would say kind of bringing that family atmosphere and kind of displaying what I can do as part of me being a player can bring to their program. I think they really pushed. I got the mail outs, and then I did when it got to my senior year or into my senior year, junior year, they had me come down for an unofficial. I came down with my parents for an unofficial visit. My parents were able to drive me down. So that was one thing, for my parents to be lucky enough to bring me down here to Philly. And then they brought me back for an official visit. But they did all those things. Like Coach Griffin was at one of my high school games, a couple of them. Coach Day, when he was here, he's now at Salle, recruited me to come here. And they just were always present. And I was able to, kind of meet with the girls on both visits. So I think just having that somewhat of a family atmosphere and plan for me at that time, they were losing so transfer portal wasn't a thing back then. So everybody kind of went, they were losing their senior point guard that next year, the year I was coming in. So and they didn't have, I think whoever they had as a sophomore didn't work out, or they got injured. That was going to be like their next point guard up. So basically they had no point guard going to that following year. And then they ended up bringing in two. So in my head, I was like, oh, I got, I'm probably play 20 minutes at minimum my freshman year. So I think just kind of that landscape of saying, hey, like, we want you to come here and play right away. And there was a space to do that on top of me visiting. I think on my official visit, the girls, I was with two of my teammates that I still talk to today. Michelle Baker is also a coach at Villanova. So a lot of roots here outside of St. Joe's. So she was my host, and we didn't even do anything. Like, we just stayed. I think they had finals the next day. So I was just in the dorm. We did the normal thing, went to class, went to lunch, we actually went on a bus tour, or the cycling tours when they had those in Philly. So that was like actually pretty cool. And I just went to sleep. So I didn't do any crazy partying or anything. And then kind of when I made my decision, I technically had to wait for another person to say they don't want to go to St. Joe's. Then it was offered to me. And then once I got that call, I was like, oh yeah, like no doubt about it. I probably would have cried if, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So just that family atmosphere, like setting up a plan for me, and what incoming freshman wouldn't want to hear that you have the opportunity to play right away. It's up to you what you're going to do with the opportunity.
Yeah. It's funny. So many people talk about a family atmosphere. And sadly, it's overspoken and underlived at times, but it sounds like they lived up to the hype, because a lot of programs will say, yeah, we're a family atmosphere, but then you get there and you're like, this ain't a family, So
Yeah.
what specifically like made you feel that the very thing that they were saying or selling in the process about the family part of it?
I think I could see that in that plan, as far as like, okay, well, they're not lying to me, because like they only had, doing my research, and just the players, like they were so nice on my visit, and I interacted with a couple of them kind of a little bit previously, and they, you kind of don't know until you get there. But sometimes it's just, I just had a feeling. I always tell, kids, like, you just have a feeling that this is going to be, and it ended up being great. And, looking back on it now, those same people are still in my group chats, that I still talk to them, every single day. And, I would love for that to continue with our players. But it's about what you guys do. And everybody had the same goal and wanted to work hard. I knew that from watching workouts. I was like, I'm going to want to play with her. She runs. I think I could fit in here. And then the coaching staff, just like I said, you don't know until you know. But I wasn't able to, shoot a three before, when I got recruited. I wasn't great at shooting a three. And knowing that I was still recruited and being able to play at this Division I level, and knowing kind of what I needed to grow through, which kind of had to force me to grow later down the line when I got to college. But yeah, so you still take a chance either way, but it felt right. And that's hence why I'm back here trying to recreate that same, atmosphere. I know it's different now in the whole recruiting stage and social media and stuff, but as much as possible to one, recruit good kids and that actually want to get their goals together and just, have fun, work hard, and hopefully, ends up in championships. And, that's not guaranteed, but at least you guys are growing and, becoming better, young women, athletes, potentially have jobs after that. Like that's the real goal. So that's what I'm trying to help recreate every single year with whoever is here for that year.
I always tell everybody whenever they go on a visit, like it's solely, you don't, what's the best way to put it? Whenever somebody comes to a visit, I'm just like, you just know if it's right or wrong within the first 15 to 20 minutes. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if it's anybody else that feels this way, but like when I was going through my visits, I remember within the first 15, 20 minutes, you're like, something's clicking and something is not. And especially when you're having that visit, like now as a coach, you have somebody on and you can just feel like, is there automatic chemistry? And I don't know how to explain it. It's just a gut feeling. And then that is ultimately like a good or bad sign. And you're like, okay, let's segue this and keep moving forward. But you just get that weird feeling right away that's just kind of like, this is it or this is not.
Yeah. No.
What's great is what I love about what you said is like the fact that you still got all these people in group chats and everything. That's like perfect confirmation of the feeling that you had.
Yes.
Right. Because now here you are, basically they start recruiting you maybe 2 years, in high school or sometimes sophomore year, junior year. And then you go all the way through your career. And now, so you're talking 6-8 year relationships here that are still alive, and vibrant. But that's literally confirmation of that feeling that you felt about St. Joe's in the first place, which that's the family atmosphere being lived out. Right.
Yeah.
Like that's total evidence, which is great,
And as I said, I mean, you've obviously had a phenomenal playing career following St. Joe's, right? I mean, you got to go across the world, right?
Yeah.
Professionally, Puerto Rico, Bulgaria, Ireland, Mongolia, Dubai. Dubai definitely interests me. I was like, all right, I have to make sure to say something. That would be a cool experience. I'm sure you have a lot of stories about that one. But throughout these playing experiences, of course, having a good extensive career in the States and then going throughout the world, like, was there anything that those experiences just overseas, because every country has different ways of coaching, different styles of playing. I mean, everything is completely unique and depending on where you go. So was there anything that you learned from those experiences that kind of you were able to bring back and use as a coach?
Yeah, I would say as far as like finding chemistry with people, you may not have a lot of in common or even speak the same language. I would assume basketball language in some aspects is universal, but I know Mongolia had some American players, but the girls didn't most of the team did not speak any type of English, and the coach spoke broken English. But it's just making that connections, kind of through actions that you can, and obviously coming there to play and kind of being a leader with people that don't understand you. So that was really beneficial to take. Like, okay, I mean, here everybody knows English and knows a lot of basketball terminology, but they might not know exactly what we're doing. And we rely on our players that kind of been through, our veterans, to help them adjust. Like, we're going to do our job as coaches, but any extra help that our players can do to help them move the process along so they can adjust a little bit quicker, I think that in itself is like when you have not just the coaches, but our team be able to lead themselves in some aspects. Like, that's what I took a lot from it. And then just, I would say, the grit pretty much on every team. A lot of the natives, I would say, don't get paid as much. So they know Americans are coming in and getting this amount of money, and it doesn't change their work ethic because they still want to win. They want to be a part of that. They practice all year round. So I played in Puerto Rico 5 years, and then a national team for 1. And it's just, I love it. I love it there. I got a lot of family out there, but it's like basketball. They do have jobs. They do have kids sometimes. Basketball is everything. And just realizing that when you don't get, maybe extra benefits and you do it out of love, like, the benefits are great, but you still, at the end of the day, you still have to love basketball, because then it's a lot of work you're putting in, yes, to get paid, but yes, to also do it. Same thing with coaching. I'm like, yes, you can get paid, but I would like to love what I do and get paid at the same time. But at the end of the day, I want to love what I do, and I'll figure out the rest later. And they just play every game with, not necessarily getting anything in return from that. And sometimes they don't even play. And it's just like, you just have to have that, whether you're number 1 on the team or number 15, that same mindset, regardless of like all the outside factors. So it's just like they play with grit, and it's just like, okay, I'm getting this, so I need to play just as hard as they do if they're not getting X, Y, and Z.
No, well said. Great book by Angela Duckworth, by the way. Grit, really good book. Great book for coaches to read. Yes, Angela Duckworth is the author. It's a great book. Let me ask you this. Now that you're coaching, and typically when you're playing overseas as an American, you're not only, like you just said, everybody knows you're the import,
Yes.
but they also know your imports are going to be better players, often the best player. Did you, having to be the import, learn how to, help players that weren't as talented, that maybe didn't speak English as well, or if at all? Did that help you become more patient as a coach now, and maybe now you're realizing it now, but you didn't know it then, if that makes sense? Because you had to kind of be a leader, but you also had to be patient, because sometimes you're just trying to wait and see if they understood what you were just trying to say or do. And so that probably created a level of patience in you that now probably helps you as a coach.
Yeah, no, I would 1000% agree. I've always been a patient person, just my upbringing. But on the court, it's like a different level. So I'm a little less patient on the court. But yeah, even playing overseas, you can't do anything. Like, you can't even run plays unless people know where they're supposed to go. So it's like taking that time, one, to build a relationship with them off the court. So as much as sometimes maybe I didn't want to do something, it's at least you have to make an effort, so then they make an effort for you. So if you're overseas and you don't want to do anything with anybody, all right, that's going to be a little bit harder for you to build relationships and then take that time. But at the end of the day, it's like, what do you care? I did care for that, and I cared more when I was going overseas to make sure, hey, we got to be on the same page so we can win. All right, you're going here, and just try to repeat it enough so you understand, and then whatever, those players, the better players, could take care of, we'll figure it out with everybody else. But yeah, I think my patience as a coach, I think it got a little bit short. It's going to get a little bit shorter, but I want to hold my players even more accountable than I did like last year, especially the returners. So I'm going to have less patience with you if you're still, doing those same mistakes. over and over again that we've already talked about, that you make, and then now we're just here. Like, where are we gonna go?
Yeah.
Because the way to go is up. So yeah, I would say that helped me a lot with stepping back with certain players. Okay, well, this is what you're struggling with, so let's work on this a little bit more because you're already fine with the other things. And then
Right.
kind of working. Now I think it's about finding the walls for some. So we have a little a newer team this year. We lost a lot of seniors, and finding like when are you going to hit your wall and surpass that? What I don't want to, I want to push you to your wall, but we are going to have a different season because we have different players.
Sure.
What are we going to do? Like, we're going to be patient, but at some point it's going to stop, and hey, you either got to get this or we got to move on. And I don't want to move on without you. Yeah, it's definitely
right.
It's definitely.
Oh, I bet it does. And as a point guard, right? Like that's like that's the point guard's not a position. It's like holding an office almost as a point guard. You're almost a politician because you have to have that feel for everyone, and you have to be able to read the room and read the huddle and look at faces and see who's terrified in the last 2 minutes and who isn't.
I learned a lot of that at St. Joe's when I got here, because I was a freshman point guard leading a whole bunch of veterans, and I didn't talk. I was a lot of action, didn't talk too much until probably like the following year, where I was just one. Now that I'm a coach, I'm fine talking to anybody. You kind of have to do it with the job, and it just comes with it, and I'm very comfortable with it now. But when I first got to college, I was like, oh, I have to direct older people that probably know more things than me. So that was a learning curve, and it helped me to be a captain, going into my senior year. And I wanted that. I worked towards that, to be louder, to be more vocal, to be able to direct, to hold myself and others accountable, and to be very honest. Like, I'm still an honest coach. I don't try to sugarcoat a lot of things, and it might sound a little nicer, but the point is still the same when I get it across. That has helped me so much to be able to talk. And I tell all my kids like that want to potentially be captains, you have to be able to talk. Okay, you want to be in this NIL space. If you want all these things, sponsorships, you have to be able to interact and have conversations and talk to people face to face and introduce 100%. Yourself. If you want those things, like, part of it is on you and growing, as into adulthood for what you want. And sometimes it might come and you have to figure it out. A lot of stars just can't hide. You just can't hide if you're a star at the end of the day.
No, that's the art of professionalism, right? It's one thing to be a pro and be paid to play. That's different. But professionalism travels regardless of your career. And what you're describing is you're trying to get them to understand there's a level of professionalism. You go to a speaking engagement, don't wear a sweatsuit. Go with you got some loot in your pocket. Go get a business suit, black suit, white blouse or whatever it is. And, just say, get your own digital business cards made up or something, so people can tap your phone and you got all your information on there, and master the art of a handshake and eye contact. Like, this is professionalism. So I love that you're saying all that stuff, because they're going to be professionals one way or the other, hopefully playing if they're good enough. But they're going to translate into being a professional in some form or fashion. So those same habits are going to travel.
No doubt. Especially, those are the type of things where you're not doing somebody justice if you're not teaching them. Like, being the hard truth of something, telling somebody the truth, I got to say, might be one of the hardest things to do, especially as a young coach, because you want to try and be close to, or maybe just as a coach in general. Like, obviously, yes, you always have to tell the truth. I'm not saying anything against that. But the simple fact that, telling the truth to somebody and then it being a hard truth, and then like, hey, listen, you're going to have to take a backseat this year. We have somebody else that stepped in, or something like along those lines of that conversation. It's not an easy thing to be able to tell somebody who you've grown a relationship with over a couple of years, and you're like, hey, like, you didn't work hard enough or whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, that's the type of conversation that they'll come back and be like, I respect the heck out of what you said to me. Thank you for that. Like, and I've seen so many careers ruined because people have been promised things, got recruited somewhere, went there, and then never got anything that they were promised. And it's just like, Yeah, everything was thrown away.
Yeah, gotta be careful with that word in recruiting. Promise.
Yeah, we don't like to promise.
Never.
Gotta be careful
Never.
with that word.
I don't even make personal promises. I feel like I can't keep
Yeah.
Absolutely. Gotta be careful with that word. But no.
No, I completely agree.
So true.
And especially how we say with everything changing with the money now, I mean, that's a completely different story that we won't even go into. But we're kind of talking on that, though. Also, one of the things that you do is recruiting coordinator, as I mentioned. So kind of going into that, I mean, you've been on the operations coordinator side, the operations side. You've been obviously an assistant coach, as you are still now, recruiting coordinator. I mean, you have done a variety of different things. And again, been a player at a high level. So you've seen many assets of the game and ways that teams work. Is there anything across those roles, just values, mindsets, starting from the bottom and kind of working your way up? Like, what were your personal mindsets going into those first initial positions, starting as a coach?
I would say going into, well, even before that, I'll say segueing from leaving college, with my current head coach, Coach Griffin, who was my head coach when I played at St. Joe's, is, make sure you're a good person. You want to work hard and be a good person at the end of the day, because if I didn't do all those things, I wouldn't have made those relationships. Or if, I wanted to, act crazy while I was at St. Joe's, Coach Griffin would not vouch for me in anything, or anybody who coached me at St. Joe's or in that world would not want to help me. So when I was playing, I would say I was a little bit, not necessarily delayed, but a lot of people go into the coaching profession right after college. I played for 5 years because that's what I wanted to do. Loved it. And then I was like, okay, now it's time to, get into the business. Like, how do I get in? So Coach Griffin was one of my calls. Coach Jada Pierce, she's currently head coach at Niagara University. So she was one of my assistant coaches here at St. Joe's for my senior year, that I reached out to them initially. I was like, hey, could you help me get in the business? So it's all about, putting the work in. You don't have a real resume. You just have what you do, like your hard work, your character while you're playing. So they literally were going off of that as far as recommending me for jobs. So that's kind of like, hey, you're building kind of your resume and your connections now while you're playing. Even just if you didn't go to a school, you still have that connection. Hey, she was a nice kid. She didn't come here, but hey, you never know what could happen in the future. And our players here too, like, we want to help all of them get to X, Y, and Z, whatever their goals are. So that was even starting before I started my jobs, and then looking for a job. I applied for a ton, and a couple of them were like, they knew they had a better relationship from who got hired. So I was like, you just have to be okay with being turned down and fire you up for the next shot. Okay, well, this didn't happen because of this. So let me, adjust and do here. Let me look in here. And kind of, I was looking at anything, a GA position, director of ops. And then I ended up, Jessica Minetti was the coach who hired me as the Dobo at Sacred Heart University, 2019. And she coached me in AAU. So I had that connection as well. But I knew I wanted to coach. Not that director of operations wasn't coaching. Now you can do that. But back then you only technically could do operational stuff. But with that, I knew I wanted to be a coach. So I made sure I was in every single coaching meeting. Anything that I can watch, practice, or like legally do at the time, I was doing. So I was like, I knew my goal. I'm going to be in all these coaches meetings and then just handle my work after, because I had to do my job, doing travel, food, itineraries, all that stuff. But that helped me too, so I can learn the system, kind of obviously build a relationship with the girls. And then I would say I was very blessed in my path, because I was a director of operations for 1 year and then assistant coach that following year because one of the coaches left. So I was able to be there for 2 years, and then was assistant coach during COVID. So that was really interesting, my first year as an assistant coach. But it's for me personally, I never want to get too comfortable with something. Like, if job's cool, then something, I got to be fixing something at my house or a goal of something that makes me uncomfortable, because I don't work well being comfortable in all aspects of my life. But it's just, okay, once I became an assistant coach, I'm like, what's the next step? having,
Mhm.
oh, I got it. This is how I'm working while I'm in the current job I am doing, which is to the best of my abilities and taking on sometimes more than I should be, but having balance. I'm learning that a little bit more now. And just do whatever you want towards your goal, you're going to do whatever you want. So it's up to you. You have a goal. My next goal is to be a recruiting coordinator, after I got the assistant job. And then obviously those, I want bringing a recruit, have all conference players like that. Those are always goals, whether they happen or not. You can't control that, but you can do your best. So it's just like what I wanted. It was always the next goal. Once I got something, there's a next goal of the next stage. And that already prepares you. If you're already prepared for a next goal, you're already going to do all these things because you have a goal in mind. So it's going to happen by instinct. But if you're intrinsically motivated, you're a go-getter, good at building relationships and have a goal for yourself. And depending on, your type of character, like I want to be real honest with my kids as a coach, help them with any personal advice that I can, and learning from them as well. Like their story is not my story at St. Joe's, but if they need some advice to see the whole picture that I can help them with, I'll offer it, but not overbearing, because their story is not my story. Their story is totally different. And I want it to be better than my story, specifically because I'm currently at St. Joe's. So that it's just like you gotta want more for yourself, because nobody's gonna want it more than you. We might want it at the current moment more than our kids, but I want them to want to reach their goals for them, not for us.
Yeah. Well, and what's great about what you're saying is like nobody's gonna care about St. Joe's as much as you are. I mean, like you have literally blood, sweat, and tears in that gym on that floor. So I can see like that feeling of like how great the experience can be there if somebody invests at a level that they're capable of, and if their work level matches their talent level. It's like, okay, I've seen what can happen here, you guys. So you kind of set a bit of a standard for them in a way that's great, because you've walked through that place and you've seen how special that experience can be. So yeah, you're right. It's hard. Like there'll be times where you do run into that, where you want it a little bit more than they do, and that's where the patience button gets pushed a little bit.
Our conversations come in.
The truth telling thing, and then they have to decide what they do with that truth. So, and on we go as coaches, But that's very well said. Very well said.
The one thing too you mentioned, in not burning a bridge in the recruiting process, that right there is, especially nowadays, like before, obviously you never want to burn a bridge nonetheless, but now it's like that kid could be gone in half a semester and already in the portal, and it's like, well, you already burnt that bridge, you're going to have to see him now find a way back into the conference, but not on your team, or something, because he's going somewhere else. So you definitely never want to burn a bridge with a family or a parent. And that's the one thing that I've really been kind of adjusting to, is not that I guess I shouldn't say it that way, because it makes it sound like I was burning bridges before, but like now you take it a little less to the heart, and then just kind of more of, hey, whatever's best for you, if anything changes, feel free to reach out.
Yeah. Be careful how you say goodbye. I mean, it's literally what you just be careful how you say goodbye. Like say good luck while you say goodbye. Make sure you say good luck when you say goodbye. Wish you the best.
We'll see you again soon.
If we hammer you by 20 when we play you, don't take it personally. So you can throw some funny, throw a little joke in there as well.
Yeah.
But you never know that these things can go full circle in a crazy way now more than ever. So absolutely.
So Coach Prim, we got to talk about this, okay? We said it before we hopped on, but just the general landscape of women's basketball and the growth that it is seeing so far, right? From your program, obviously, has been a very good program moving, well, so far, as well as continuing moving forward. But then just the game as a whole. That is something that everybody has seen an absolute skyrocket and evolution, like a lot of growth in it the last few years. How do you see it to continue to grow? And then ultimately, I mean, if we're talking 5-10 years down the line, like how do you see this kind of progressing still?
I mean, I love where it's going. I think it's just about visibility. And, having a presence, having, role models. And even if they're not your role model, they're still a presence, like the WNBA is really big, and just women's basketball, college basketball is really big too. Same thing with AAU. I think just being more visible. I know what it was over probably 15 years ago when I was in high school, there wasn't a ton of WNBA games on TV. I was also outside playing a lot, so that could be have a
That's
thing.
old school. That's old school right there. No wonder you were tough. No wonder you were tough. Now I get it. Now you were out. You were out
I
on
was
the hard
outside
time.
playing with the boys.
Yeah,
It's
no
just,
wonder you were tough. I get it now. Okay.
like, it's at your fingertips. Pretty much all our games for the last couple of years have been on ESPN Plus. Like, you can literally find a game during the seasons from any conference on ESPN Plus. Like high school players have access to it. The WNBA games are on every night. So I think just being more visible, and I think social media is doing a big thing. Like, good, bad press, whatever. And you want to be your authentic self at some point in time. You can only be someone else for a certain amount of time, and people are either going to accept who you are as a player, as a person, or not, because at the end of the day, everybody's not going to love you, and hopefully everybody doesn't hate you. But I think the more, even the tunnel fits in the WNBA, like, that's trickling into college. And I think it's being more visible and seeing, outside. Like, the girls are still working. At the end of the day, the work is still the same. They're still doing all that stuff. But being able to have a platform outside of just basketball, obviously for when the ball stops bouncing too. So I think it's just continuing to grow. NIL space is, it's always good and bad. But at the end of the day, regardless of how much money you're getting or not getting for where you're at, you still have to, one, be a good fit for you. It has to be a good fit for you, and you hopefully love where you're at or want to make the best of the situation. Because I wouldn't suggest anybody, no matter how amount of money, and yes, everybody's circumstances are different, but if you don't feel loved or, with your team, that you can walk in there every single day happy, then that might not be the best fit for you. So I think it's just going to continue to grow. I think social media is doing a great thing, and just putting female, basketball on all levels and platforms out there so everybody can see. Like, soccer play, like, even all sports. I think it's just going to continue to grow, and would love for more money to be involved overall on, college, WNBA, professional basketball for females, which is growing. But I just don't see it backtracking from here because of how visible it is. And, yes, we're setting certain standards, and you kind of only see the top, and also seeing, like, realistic views. But I think that's what, social media helps with, and kind of seeing that stuff in person when you go on visits. Every school is different. Every conference is different. And being able to see what it is once you see it live outside. So social media will give you some stuff. We're doing a lot more, so you can get a look at our girls outside the court until we start playing. I love where it's going. The fact that I can turn on, look on my phone, turn on WNBA app, find it just at all times of the day. Find, the Suns are playing, or Liberty playing with Tasha Cloud. It's just like, hey, girls, go watch. They can watch our games online. I love where it's going. Yes, the money just make things, like I said, we're not talking too much. Money just make things a little bit different. But at the end of the day, yeah, you can go somewhere for money, or you can go somewhere for less money and love it there. It's just the right fit for you. The right fit is, that's going to ultimately what you're going to be okay with your decisions. Unfortunately, money doesn't always make everything better. It can, but at the end of the day,
it definitely can.
You want to make it a right fit. If all things can line up perfectly, that's great. But just make it a right fit where you're valued and you feel valued.
Yeah, I don't know if they've discussed this. I'd be curious to see if they have a women's developmental league in the plans, because I know the league is expanding. Yeah. But I wonder, would a developmental league give more players opportunities, but it would also create more coaching opportunities as well? I mean, I'm in Indy right now. The Fever are basically playing on one leg, with all their injuries.
Yeah.
But would they have been able to call up 2 or 3 players that could possibly chip in if you have a developmental league, you know.
Yeah.
And again, I know ideas cost money. I get it. But with so few teams, I think, you know, it looks like they're trying to eventually get to maybe 16, and maybe this is the magic number that they're shooting for based on how they're adding, you know, some developmental teams, or some expansion teams. But I don't know if they've talked about that at all, discussed it, but that's a curiosity for me, because again, it just creates more playing opportunities here for players that could eventually matriculate to that level. But then also it's more coaching opportunities for coaches, both male and female, on the women's side professionally.
Yeah.
So
no, especially, I mean, being able to have, what is it, 3 more teams being added right now?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cleveland,
Toronto, Cleveland,
Philly,
Detroit, and Philly. Yeah, and I think they've talked about
Yeah.
Toronto too. I'm not sure if Toronto's been in discussion. I think it might have been, but yeah. So that would take it from 11 now. So that takes it to 14, I think, after that. So I'm guessing they're pushing for 16. I don't know if that's the case, but anyway, just a little food for thought there, WNBA people. Think about your own.
Think about it. We'll get ahead of the WNBA executives, and we'll make sure we put that.
Think about your own D League there, WNBA D League. Yeah.
So I want to ask you too, just coaching on the women's side, like staying on this side of things. As we mentioned, you know, we get to talk about this, but we haven't really had an opportunity to talk about it with too many people. So it's honestly great to hear your insight and just like the growth of everything. But just the biggest misconception, I feel like maybe people don't look at coaching in the women's side. Maybe they do or they don't. Like they look at one way or the other, and it all depends on, maybe they just haven't been a part of that. I know Mage has informed me a lot about it, just because he was on with Texas on the women's side for a year. So I know he's got to be able to be a part of it. But just like, is there a misconception that you feel like people have about coaching on the women's side?
I would say, you know, maybe sometimes they're like, it's easy. You know, from looking at, okay, you guys get gear, you do this, you just, you know, watch kids play basketball. I was like, yeah, I wish it was that. So I think that might be some of the misconception on that. And it's, you know, that there's a timeline. I'm pretty sure I can't see any coach that says they really aren't working 24/7. To be honest, there's really no downtime, especially with the transfer portal now. And kind of even the recruiting shutdowns, you might still have workouts or just stuff to do that just doesn't involve talking to recruits, which is kind of all year round. So I think that's kind of easy, and, you know, that you have breaks in a sense, because you really don't. You really don't. Try to have some balance, like I said, working on that, but you really don't get a lot of breaks. It's an all year round job. So I'll say those are, you know, couple misconceptions, and like it's not just basketball. A lot of other things we do outside of, you know, on the course, working out with our kids, and it's a lot more to it.
Yeah, for sure.
Making sure you get a healthy balance of that right there is one of the things, especially as a young coach, because like all you hear about is, as a young coach, you hear and listen to people such as yourself, and they say, make sure you grind, work your tail off. You got to do all this. And you're like, okay, you train it in your brain that I got to keep going. And you do all this. And then you finally get to a point where you're like driving yourself insane. You feel like, so I 100% understand what you're saying, because sometimes you got to be able to just like turn that phone off, throw it aside, like get a couple hours, even if it's a couple hours a day or just an hour a day, to reflect, sit down, think about everything. And get some time away from everything. So that's a key note to keep.
That's a goal of mine this year, to have some balance.
Yeah, you know, but you know, you're still on trial and error mode as a young coach, and every year you're into it, you learn how to work just as hard, but you just learn to work smarter. You know, and one thing that really shifted for me as a young coach is I started coming in earlier, not crazy, you know, but coming in and utilizing that 2 or 3 hours before the office started buzzing, and go get my Starbucks, you know, turn on some jazz music, watch film, and it's quiet in there. Maybe you see the maintenance folks come through and wave and say hello, good morning. But other than that, it's quiet from like that 6:30 or 7 until 9:30 period. And that really helped me, because I started getting uninterrupted time to do stuff. And then all of a sudden you don't need to stay in there till 9-10 o'clock at night because you're being, so as you get deeper into this, you'll learn how to work just as hard, but you'll work smarter, and you can strategically use the clock to your advantage if you really commit to it.
Advice. I'm not an early morning person. I'm a late night. I'm a late night person.
Which is okay. No, that's okay, because that late night hours can be quiet too after everybody's gone. So
no, but I want to be on that wave. I want to turn. I'm working towards it.
You might have just doing 30-minute chunks. Just start scaling back. 30. 30 lessons.
I started doing that. I honestly started doing that. I would go to sleep another half hour sooner and then wake up a half hour earlier. And I started going, like, after a couple of weeks, cut it back another half hour. And I've been kind of getting into a more routine. So that's actually, I'm more of a night person myself. Trust me, I'm the same thing as you.
It is beneficial to do my workouts in the morning, get some work done, and then, a little bit more at night, and then just go to sleep and do it again the next day.
Studies show that most productivity comes from in the morning, which is like the weirdest thing, especially if you're not a morning person. But it's true. It's true. I don't know how it's true, but it's true.
That's still the player in her. The player in her is still the night owl. So she's ringing that out little by little, drop by drop. She's working.
I know what's best for me is to wake up earlier.
No, trust me, I wasn't doing that out of the gate. So that was 10 years at least into it when I started using mornings. But it does make a difference. But yeah, everybody's got to do what's best for them. But now you'll learn how to work smarter as you continue to work harder. So it's a delicate balance, but it can happen.
So Coach Prim, you have given us some great advice so far. And what we always like to do is just wrap it all up, put a bow on top, and ultimately kind of give you a full circle moment here. If there was anything that you could say to yourself starting out in the coaching profession, any advice that you could give to yourself, knowing what you know now in the position you're in, what advice would you share with yourself in the industry?
I would say, don't take things too personal. For rejections for jobs, maybe your coach yelled at you, as me being an adult. I think don't take things too personal, but use it to motivate you. Because you're always, I'm still learning. I learn from my players. I learn from the people I work with. Even on podcasts like these, like you're always learning something, which always has open ears. But you also have things to teach that you can teach to at whatever stage you're at. And I think and it's still working on for me to not take things too personal. Oh, you didn't like this, or okay, well, I'm confident enough that this is what we're doing and it's worked. So if it's not working, we'll adjust something. Or if my head coach says, hey, we're not doing this, we're not, it's a done deal. But don't take what is said. Same thing. Like if coaches, I tell our players, coaches yelling, listen, I know it's going to be hard for you, but don't listen to what she's saying, not necessarily the tone.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. And I know it's hard for them, at 18 to 22 to listen to that. It's still at times hard for me, but it's like, okay, once you sit down, like, what did she actually say? And what do I need to do to adjust, fix, or continue building upon if I'm doing the right thing? So I think just not taking everything, every rejection personal. I think, if somebody doesn't have time to connect with you, still reach out. You never know what's happening. Maybe they just had something to do that day, or somebody had a bad day, still put that effort in, and then you can make the decision after. I always like to give, just in general, a couple chances. And then I'm like, okay, we recruits, hey, I'm going to hit you up a lot of times. And then after a certain amount of time, then I'm going to just not hit you up. Just keep working, find a way. And like I said, balance TBD. If you can figure out how to do all this stuff and still be great at your job without balance, okay, cool. It would be nice to have it, but just, don't take anything personal and just use it to motivate you to learn. Like everything should be a learning experience. Learn to be better at what you're already doing, or learn to be better at what you may not know or not do so well at the current moment.
Love it.
Perfect.
Well, actually, before Doug lands the plane here, St. Joe's women's program is in great shape, because one thing that's shown through in this pod, at least for me, you are a competitor. You obviously were a great competitor as a player, but I can still feel that fire burning as a coach. From your point guard perfectionist mentality, that you are a competitor, and so
Yeah.
the program's in great shape. We are so happy that you're able to jump on with us. This was so good, because again, we're challenging ourselves. How can we make this pod better? And our pod's only as good as the people we bring on it. And so rising coaches got better today. So we appreciate this.
I was like, Doug, Alan, thank you so much for even this opportunity, to be on this podcast. Like, this was so much fun. I know. Come see St. Joe's. If you watch this podcast, come see St. Joe's play this year. I'm excited. We're rebuilding. So excited. But like I said, I appreciate you guys for the opportunity to even, be on the Rising Coaches podcast as well.
Absolutely. No, this was great.
No, we do appreciate it. And hey, 24-10 for growing program is a good season last year. That's a great season. So
I put 28 this year. Coach is like, I was like, you got to shoot high. I'm not
shooting. That's all right. That's all right. Nothing wrong with that.
But no, we, as Mage said, we appreciate you for being on here, sharing everything. And yeah, it's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. And for everybody out there, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Rising Coaches podcast. Alan Major, Doug Caputo, keep working and keep rising, coaches. We'll see you all soon. Take care.